we have here Colin's PRS SE Bernie Marsden Les Paul kind of guitar, and I had a monitor rigged up behind there using my old Mac, and Apple is just so rubbish. I know you're gonna laugh at me for even bothering to buy an Apple or take an Apple phone contract. I wanted the quality of the camera, which it is good. Unfortunately, it won't shove it through to QuickTime on the screen, even with a tethered wire, and it certainly won't do it with a Bluetooth connection. So I was hoping to be able to monitor what I was looking at, but I'm just going to have to do it rough and ready. And occasionally I'm going to walk around here and I'm going to look into the thing over here and go, oh look, there's a guitar in focus, and I just live with it. And when I need a close-up, I'm going to grab this phone here and take a close-up. So I think I'll do that, as is my tradition. I'll take a little fly around. Okay, it's a Sunday night. Here we go. Video. I suppose I need one of those noises to let me know I've switched both on. Sorry, I should have a clapper board. Anyhow, the Bernie Marsden SE, PRS SE. I worked on one of these before, maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was a great little guitar, great chunky guitar. There's nothing much little about it. Yeah, it feels very nice to play. This has come to me because the nut, I don't know quite what it is, but it's a great big lump of something, and it apparently is not holding tune very well. It's not badly cut. I can see from here that the first fret action is quite good, but this has come for a setup and some new Tusq adjustable nut. But also, what Colin's asked is, could I do a push and can I do a phase switch on one of these? And I think because that's an A500 pot, it's probably better if it's a volume for the logarithmic audio taper, because one of the things that Colin had mentioned about that he felt that the volume knob on this thing was a bit all or nothing, and I get what he means about it. I haven't really noticed it just yet on this one, and I'll have a listen to it later, but the question is, will an audio taper give a little bit better chance for a more progressive or more smoother progressive volume raise instead of a sort of on and off thing that it's experiencing it at the moment. So just a lovely, great chunky, great guitar this is really. I don't know what the chambering is in here, but it's not an 8-pounder for sure. I mean, it might be, sorry, it's not a 10-pounder, which it would be if it was solid mahogany. It's got a flamed book matched maple top, which is pretty nice looking. It's got the PRS style bridge, which I like. I think they're really simple. This is a classic example of why tunematic bridges should be consigned to history. This thing gives you your, I mean, it's first thing to say is this is geared up for a 3-plane and 3-wound, and you'd need a different bridge if you were a kind of player who needed a wound G. But having said that, this gives you adjustability. Both this can be pushed backwards off the post. One side can be pushed back, the other side can be pushed back. So with the pre-built or the compensated pattern on the top here, you really have got all you need to intonate this guitar, and I just think that's so much better than the what you get with your tunematic. Somebody's taken the time to carve down the front of this to take away any any sharp edges off it, which is a great touch. I've just made up, while I've been off camera before I started, I've just made up 2 adjustable nut bases, and you can see they're very tall because I made a lot of material, but they're about the right width now, and they're going to just set. And I've actually, for the first time ever, I've actually made them pretty much dead flat in line with the front of the nut. So that's going to be quite a, normally I leave them a bit bigger, but that one sort of dried in that position, so I was kind of squeezing them a little bit harder perhaps than I should, but I'm sure they'll be fine. And I will cut those down to size and start sanding them. There was my attempt at, I know it's ridiculous to have to put your computer in a custom made thing on the side, but that's what I was had to do. And this little QuickTime thing here will not show what's on that camera, although it did from home the other day. It's just decided not to do it, and frankly I can't be to get it going. So that's the close-ups for a minute. So I think one of the things I want to look at before I do anything with this guitar is I'm going to have a look and see whether or how, stop beeping at my phones. I'm going to have a look in there and see what we've got in the way of what the pickup wiring is. It doesn't really matter because whether it's a 2-wire or a 4-wire, we can make the we can make the phase switch happen. Not too difficult to do. So let's have a look. Have we got room? Yes, it's an A500 on there. Okay. They're all A pots, and we've got what they appear to be, unless I'm mistaken, they are 2-wire. That's fine. It doesn't give you, the only thing about 2-wire versus 4-wire is it doesn't give you more exotic switching options, but it does give you the phase switch, because that's a polarity switch over, so we should have no problem getting one of those installed. So we can certainly do that. Let's leave this to one side. We'll perhaps do that after, when I've done the fret work. Now what we've got at the moment, let's do a sort of measure up and see what the kind of readings are. I had a little delivery yesterday. 2 more sets of magnets, 2 sets of 10, so 20, and these are actually quite a bit thicker. 20 little magnets. So I've added 10 to my tool hanging space, which means I can dangle things kind of anywhere I like without them getting in the way of things. It's really handy. Anything metal goes up on that wall. I mean, it's a little bit annoying because when you pull them off, sometimes you get the magnet come off with it, but that's okay. You can just put it back on the wall. Right. So first thing first, let's have a look at what the neck relief looks like on this. And I know this is not the greatest angle in the world, and that's, in a way, that's what I was hoping to be able to adjust with. With being able to monitor. If I could monitor what I'm seeing in the camera, I could sort of move things around a little bit. Okay, so I just had a quick sort of visual look, and it was showing up as, I bet it's about 0.3 of a mil, which isn't too much, or it's not a lot. It's a bit higher than I would maybe go, but we'll see how it, see whether it needs to be lower. So I can just try my 0.3 in there, and yeah, it's a little bit more than 0.3. So I would say it's 0.4, that's right, 0.4 down. So relief, PRS, relief, 0.4 mils. First fret action, I would say that's pretty good. No, actually not so good on the B, a little bit high. So I think we're looking at a bit of unevenness. I never know which, that's a 0.6, is it? 0.65, let's have a look. Yeah, so 0.65, that's too high anyway. So because I'm taking the nut off and replacing it with a one of these adjustable nuts, I'm not really going to worry too much about what the rest of the heights are, but as is quite often the case, the G and particularly the B is high on this, and it's higher than it needs to be, and it'll be making it go sharp at the low frets. I'm exaggerating it, but that doesn't help. Now the thing is, I could alter this. I'm just thinking about, I want to leave those nuts, those adjustable nuts dry set a little bit longer before I do anything with them. So what I might just do, let's just check something here. Let's measure the width of the nut. Excuse me. It's quite a thick nut on this one. We've got 5, 8, 9 showing up. Let's see what I've got down here. Oh yeah, we're over that. Yeah, okay, that's good. We can match the thickness. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I could adjust the B down a little bit while I'm at it, but I'm not going to. I don't know what this material is. Maybe we'll see when it comes off. But okay, so I'll leave that there. What I want to do is probably reduce the relief in the neck a little bit, the curvature. And you might say, well, okay, why? What are you going to do it to? And I find 0.2 is a good start point. And this has got, is this a PRS style? Is it the Gibson style one, or is it a special one? It's a special one. It's a metric one, but it's a socket for which I'm going to have to go hunting for the right thing. Okay, I'll probably end up stopping the thing while I look for it. Let's take a close up of that. Come along. Thank you. This is the shape. Oh yeah, can I make a noise? Bang. This is the adjuster at the end of the PRS. It's a bit grubby, but you can see it's been painted over, sprayed over. Kind of looks like it's never been really adjusted, so it's probably about time. And there's a close-up of yonder nut, which is a bit, sorry to get in your way. The slots have gone a bit sideways because of the depth of them. I don't know if that's, I can't quite see that being a factory cut. Actually, it seems a bit rough for that. Stop sending me things. Right, I'm going to stop the video and go look for the right socket for this. I'll see you back in a second. God, this setup, this phone setup, is doing my head in a little bit, but that's all right. Right, okay. I'm just checking. I did a tiny adjustment. Found the socket. Did a tiny adjustment, and I'm just double checking. See what we've got. Sorry, terrible view, but I can't do any better just for now. I'd say, well, we've got about 0.25. I'll keep it there for the time being. What I noticed, by the way, is that this nut is very pingy, so there's no doubt, I mean, it's not completely sure that it's going to be out of tune a lot of the time, because, as I've said a million times before on videos, the nut is 50% of your tuning stability. The amount of slack in your strings is another 50%. So if I look at that for, let's see, let's give it a pull, stop that noise. So there's still a ton of unreleased slack in these strings, so that will be another reason why it's going out of tune all the time, Colin. So 50% of it, the nut, which is binding, I can hear it pinging on the higher strings when I was tuning it. Ding. 50% the nut, 50% unreleased slack in the strings. So I'll show when I restring this, I will show what I mean about stretching it out and how I stretch it out for maximum tuning stability, but you need to do that every time you fit new strings. Okay, these are looking like, I think they're 1046s. Yeah, so you've got to stretch them out as well as sort the nut out. So we're doing the nut today. We're also going to do the strings, sort out the strings, as well as change this pot out for a push pull. No, push. I'm not really sure. Colin mentioned something about, didn't know whether the push sits higher in the end than the push pull. I don't think it really does. I'm not sure there's much of a difference, but I could be wrong. I prefer pushes because I think they feel like a much better, simpler switch to just push it on, push it off. Okay, so let me just check. We're back to the relief is where I want it. Let's just check the playing action on the last fret. And currently it's pretty low. It's set to about 1.6 something there, and about just under 1.5 there. So I would aim for that being a little lower personally. What I'm going to just do for a minute, I'm just going to slack these off and make an adjustment there. So a tiny bit lower on the bass side and a bit lower on the treble side. Go that way. You'll hear these strings ping, I think, when I do them back up in a minute. Get the right sized one. Let's put this down flat. Ah, that's the question. Do we have any further down adjustment? Hope so. Probably. Yeah, they're pretty low fitted actually. So we'll go a tiny bit more down here. We have to guess. And a tiny bit low there. Let's make that a guess, shall we? Just quickly check the actions. Okay, 1.2 and 1.5. Perfect. Now I'm just going to give these a bit more of a pull and then retune them one more time. What I'm going to be trying out now, or looking for, is to see how well the frets play, see if there are any bends and chokes at this slightly lower action. And we'll see how it goes on. So this, it doesn't have to be concert pitch. Ping, ping. So what I'm looking for now is to hear the amount of, or hear what the strings sound like, the notes, fretted notes. Hands are really cold. Now what I want to know is I'm going to put a little piece of tape on here, mark with tape wherever that's gone. just to remind me that that's choking out up there. I mean, it's pretty low action, but it's a Les Paul, so it should tolerate such a low action. Let's just double check it. So it's that one there next to the body where I'm touching with my bit of tape. Right. But what I'll do is I'll mark it. The one I know I'm looking at, that's your fret there. That's your one slightly high fret for bends. Okay, so we've got a few sort of patches of very mild fret buzz down on the low E and A. There's also a high fret, probably is sort of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16th fret. Is a little bit high in so far as when we bend this high E across, it chokes out. But when I say high, I'm being very picky and and very hypercritical in that it's not an absolute mile high. It's high enough to choke out a bend, and because of that, that's something I want to take care of. But it's not terrible. It's not at all terrible. But I think we can clean up that slight buzzing at this action. It's 1.5 millimeters at the last fret, which is should be a little bit better than that, unless we find that the relief has changed anymore, but it hasn't. That's still the same now. Okay, well, I think that's what we're gonna do. I'm going to slack off the strings for a minute. I'm going to use the setup as is to do the fret leveling. Ow, that's my finger nail. Yeah, we'll do the setup, leave the setup as is, and then I will take a bandsaw in a minute to those new nuts. If I haven't made them wide enough, I'm thinking I may have just slightly, thinking I might have slightly thinned them down too much. And when I'll make some more, I've got plenty of material. It'll just take another half an hour to make them. So these frets are looking a little bit on the need a refresh. I was going to say tarnished, but they could do with a shine up as well as a very mild level. Looking at the tops of them right here, I don't think they've been leveled before, so they look factory condition, which is pretty good actually for a factory guitar. Then you'd expect it, I suppose, of a PRS. What I'm doing here is really going that extra little bit, but I'm not criticizing PRS for any quality issue here. It's it's a personal choice. Customers come and ask me, can I set it up low and light and make it stay in tune, and that's what I endeavour to do. And it's not criticism of PRS. Let me just think. Do you know what? No, I should do it all in one. Let me do the nut bit now. Might as well, because it's going to then stay in place. So let's just remove all these. Drop them off. Loosen them and drop them off the side. Now I'm looking at this nut, and I'm going to need to remove it, and it's glued in. So I'm going to need to tap it loose and hope that it won't take any of the paint with it, which is, I wouldn't say too high up the side of the nut, but it's definitely kind of leans up against it. But we should be able to get the nut out with a light tap to break the glue seal. feel that. And then a bit of a wobble, and out it comes. Oh, bit of a, okay. Wow, what's that? Okay, so it's taken up a tiny bit of the binding that it was glued to here, which isn't it's not the end of the world, but they've not cut the nut slot down. Well, they have on this side, the nut slot is down to the binding, and on this side it's not quite. So you have a very slight unevenness. I might be able to glue this little tiny bit back in. That's not a very nice looking nut, whatever it is. I don't know if I will get this little bit of plastic stuff out, the binding out of here. That we'll try. Yeah, maybe. It's a bit curly, that's the problem. And whether we'll be able to actually straighten it out without it snapping, or we may get it back in. I mean, it's being a bit over precious about it, but I think the reason I like it in is because I don't want there to be any gap at all, if I can help it, underneath the adjustable nut. Okay, let's just do something else. We'll just pull those strings out of the way. Now where's the, oh, that's fantastic. Where's the little bit of plastic? Oh, there it is. I thought I put it somewhere. Huh? Yeah, a little detail. What have I done with it? Okay, let's have a look how it works. I think that goes back on that way. But that doesn't think that, it thinks it's the other way around. But it can't be. Oh, how do you know? There's one way. One way or another. Sorry about this, you can't. God, thank you so much. Couldn't really predict that, could you? Okay, I think I've got as good an eyeball on it as I'm going to get. Everything after that is hopeful. Now, unless I'm mistaken, this doesn't seem to really want to play ball. So I'm going to try it one more time the other way around. It will either naturally drop in and fit, or it will just not bother. And I'm not sure it's really bothered to play ball. It's come up and off. Maybe let's put a little bit of extra glue on there. We can sand that back as well if there's too much glue on it. Okay, we'll leave it at that. It's a teeny weeny little repair. It's the you know, that's the peril of having stuck quite a lot of super glue on the bottom of this nut. I honestly don't know what material you'd call that. I bet somebody would call it graphite, but it feels like spongy plastic to me. It certainly doesn't feel like Tusq. You never know. It's probably some, you know, their own new bone thing. But I don't know. Not quite thrilled with it myself. All right. So what happens next in this game is I get one of these here nuts that I prepared, brand new adjustable nut, and I'm going to look and see which one is going to work for me. I think it's going to be this one. That one I may have to do again if I may not. I'm just looking at the way it's yeah, I think I might have to do this one again. We'll make another body. This one will be fine. So I'm going to use this one. Put that one off to one side. Now I'm going to start with the original nut, and I'm going to make a very rough line to give me a head start on this. And now I don't need, what I don't want to do, I should say, is I don't want to be sanding down tons of this stuff forever and ever. So I'm going to just line up these two front edges if I can. You could probably do it a bit more like that, but I don't trust it. So I'm going to do it visually to begin with a lot of margin for error. And I'm going to say, there's my line to cut it, and we'll start from that. Excuse the noise a minute. So cut that down to size, and the ultimate goal, of course, is to eventually get it to sit in there like that, but we have some sanding to do first. So I need the guitar here, so I'm going to put it out the way over to here, but it's good that if it's available there. I'm going to bring my sanding blocks up into action. So it's a pretty simple process of sanding the base down using the sanding blocks. And there's a couple of ways to do it, but one of the best ways is to follow the thickness gauge. So we're looking for, put it to millimeters, we're looking for a base thickness of 6.15. Okay, so we can keep an eye on it that way. 7.49. So you can see it's quite straightforward. Let's take the edge off this. The hard part about this is getting it to the right shape, as simple as that. It's actually quite easy to make the, well, I was going to say it's easy to make the stuff up itself, but it actually takes quite a while, and you have to wait till it's exactly the right consistency before you can do anything with it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to push this out, lever it out of its little place, and I'm going to, when it's out, I'm going to just gently sand down these overhanging bits. Again, this is quite a delicate little operation. Sort of want to end up with the right size thing without too much breaking off. Switch down a grade of sandpaper. So I'm aiming to get a sort of a flat edge around the top of this little base unit that I'm making. And the finer it is, the better it will work. see I kind of rock manically from side to side to get the flat surfaces I want. We're nearly there, just a little bit more off here. Okay, now we take this and wind these back in. Wind these back in. Brush these off. Place it back in its place. There's the numbers, there's the numbers. Fit it in, fit it in. Okay, so there's our nut fitted in, nearly ready to go on that front edge. Just do some very carefully leveling, flattening. The overhang on this side. More. Yeah, so this is definitely a load of guesswork in the nicest possible sense. You know, eyeballing isn't quite right. It's a lot of feel work going on here. Eventually, when you get it right, you get to a nice flat front of your nut, which you can then use. Just have a quick check of that. And then use. And you've just got the other side and the ends to worry about. Okay, that's very nearly flush. A tiny bit more sanding on this end. Okay, so there's that's just nearly in the socket. What did we say? 6.15, wasn't it? 6.7, so a little bit more still off the back. And we've got to get it straight with everything, so. Right, a bit more off the back here. Getting there. It's a Sunday night here in Devon. And it's almost, it's just sitting in there now. It's possibly, actually just about right. Don't want to cut it back any further than that because it's ready to sit down properly. So the next bit I do is I just make sure I square up the base of the nut, and that's kind of a critical part of it. So I just carefully sand it down. I'm just aiming for a flat base that will fit nicely with the footing that we've got here. So it's probably still a fraction too thin, too fat, I mean, sorry. Let's take a little bit more off here. Nearly there, nearly there. Right. Just about on the mark. On the mark. Get set. Go. Thank you. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of end sanding. Not too much in one go. Bring it down in, and then we'll see what the sort of overall width feels like. Still a bit too much. I think this probably needs to be all the way in width-wise. I'll just see in a minute. Just check this nut. This nut, if I remember rightly, this nut was felt a fraction short. So I think this needs to be 43, and this is 44.93. So we've got quite a bit of overhang rather than underhang. Don't have to worry too much at this point. Mm-hmm. 44.94, 44.63. What did I say? This was 42.78. That's nearly 43. Let's just see what this looks at. 43.50. Let's go with 43.50 then. 43.50. Very good. $43.50. 44.32. Nearly there. 44.26. Mm-hmm. 43.50, isn't it? That's what we want. $43.78. $43.80. $43.80. almost there. 43.50. Okay, just one more thing, or a couple more things. Let's just check that back a bit. Nice and flat. Yep. Take these out. I'm just going to round off the corners just a tiny little bit. What I did was, before I made these up, I actually flattened off the little grub screws, so that there isn't any risk of them cutting into the plastic. So they've got little solid flattened feet to sit on. Okay, there's the numbers. There's the numbers. Let's get this back up together. What I'll do is I'll move this out of the way. Bring this back across. Sorry about the view and everything. Doing the best I can. Numbers with the numbers. Front versus back. Okie dokie. So that's going to sit on there, and we've got a little bit of a lift on the end there because the glue is sticking up. So if I now just take care of that sticking up stuff with this. Oh, that's classic. Seen this before. This has been replaced badly, really. What we've got is a relatively big ditch up here. There's a trench in the nut slot. It's not anything to do with this. Sometimes you get that when this pulls out a chunk of stuff, but it hasn't done in this case. It's literally that's literally got a dip in there of its own free will. Okay, so that's going to go in there like that. Now straight away I can see that we're too high by a country mile. So I'm going to take some more down of this. What we can do is we can close in again using the calipers in a slightly different way, and actually we'll probably find how much more we've yet to take off. So 655 on the base slot, and I've got 844, so that's nearly 2 millimeters too tall. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark those 2 millimeters, and actually I'm doing that by eye. I'm pretty sure that's a good guess. Well, actually it's about 1.4. I'll be fine for the time being. So this is I've got to go back and take a fair amount off, and when you do a rougher sand, you've got to be careful that you don't wander too far off the upright. You need that perpendicular, right angled slot fit at the bottom of the slot. So I take a load of material away, kind of eyeball it, see where it's going, keep going. And when we get closer to the mark, time to look at it again and make sure that we've got the right angle, the correct angle I should say, the right angle, but it is a right angle usually, but it depends on the slot. It may not be a right angle if the slot isn't at right angles. So what we're looking for ultimately, we're going to end up with a nut that sits in here, and at its lowest wound down position I want the string sitting on the first fret to start out with, and then what I want is for Colin to be able to lift them up from the first fret into position. So at the moment it's too tall to begin with, so they're going to be sitting way off the first fret. Now the nice thing about that is, if you think I'm aiming for the strings to sit on the first fret, it does actually give me a bit of leeway. If I cut this down too far, it's not that important, or it's not the end of the world, because we just lift the grub screws up a little bit more. Obviously I don't want to go too far, but it is a bit forgiving in that respect, since we're planning to achieve the correct playing action by lifting the strings up to the right playing action. Yeah, that's nearly fitting. This is a little bit whiter than obviously the cream stuff. I've tried, or I've coloured the resin before, but I'm not sure that it likes the mix of stains, frankly. And also the Tusq nut only comes in that colour, so there's no real way of making that a nicer colour. So I don't think you end up, one chunk of it is going to be this white creamy colour anyway, whether you like it or not, if you use Tusq. But that's what we're stuck with. So it's still pretty high. It's quite a shallow slot in this guitar by the looks of it. So it's a matter of just patience, wearing it down, wearing me down. Don't wear me down. Right, I'm just about down to the line, but that way, again, that was conservative or cautious anyway. So that's looking good. That's not far off the mark, but we still need to go a bit further. So as you can see, it's a sort of slow process of getting to where you want to get to. I often say start loose and tighten up as you go along. And what I mean by that is, you're going to start with big cuts when you take it down in big chunks to begin with, and then as you get closer to the line or to your target size, then tighten up, fine finesse the cuts, go to the higher grip paper, and start taking it more carefully. And it's quite good because you can kind of approach it and get it really refined, finessed perfectly by the time you're done. So you can see that that's a very what's the word? I don't know what the word is. Shallow fit. It's a shallow nut. And I've got an air bubble in the front side here, but it won't be visible, and it's not the end of the world. I'm going to switch to the middle and the fine stuff now, just to get it down to the last bits. Okay, so there isn't, by the time we finish, there isn't an absolute ton of material under here. It's a very small unit, this adjustable nut, really. Okay, I think we might just be on the mark for, yeah, I think we're just there. Let me just do it with a fine sander for a minute. Yeah, so it's a very small, very elegant little component by the time we finished. There we go. That's pretty much it. So it started out from a great big slab of this stuff to a pretty small little unit. I'm just going to put this away. So you can see it's not a quick process, and if somebody made these, the bases for these I should say, I would bite their hands off, but they don't, so I have to do this manually. Right, it's just about spot on the right width and everything, so what I'm going to do is to test I've got it to the right depth. I'm going to remove this holding stuff. Now when you come to use the adjustable nut, the base will be glued to the wood, but the insert part is free to move. So what I recommend when you're restringing it is that you actually, when you're tightening them, is tighten from the center outwards, the D and the G first. Now straight away, just getting a feel for this. This is only just high, but it's still sitting up, and I do want it on the first fret at its lowest point. And currently the insert is at its lowest point inside the base, so I need to take a little bit more off. Not far, not much, but I want it to start. It's my rule. I don't put it on there unless it's starting starting from touching the fret, first fret. But since we're pretty much very nearly there, it's not a problem. Yeah, nice, nice. So that's why it's good to have the strings on at this point as well, because we can just keep on testing it out. Okay, that's still just above the fret, as in it's not, you can hear it's playing normally, so a tiny bit more still to go. Yeah, it's a long process really, but and a couple of people in the past have asked me, said things like, well, do customers really care about adjustability? And I think I don't think customers particularly wake up in the morning thinking, gosh, I need an adjustable nut more than anything on earth. But the real purpose for me isn't the adjustability, although that's a great benefit or bonus. The real purpose of this is the fact that we can get it to its we're about 10 scrapes away and we'll be done. Yeah, the real benefit is the tuning stability that we get from it, and the ability, and the reason, part of the reason it's such good tuning stability is because I'm making the factory slots come up to the correct action, so we don't have to attack the slots with files. And I've learned over my time is that no matter how good our files are, from a microscopic perspective, they're still sort of quite large, ragged things under the microscope. And so I would rather use the smooth factory slots of a Tusq nut than I would putting an ordinary, if I can help it, even to put an ordinary nut in there, Tusq nut, and cut downwards into it. Right, that's touching the first fret. That's where I want it. So now I'm putting the strings under pressure, and to do the fret leveling I want to put the strings up to normal pitch. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to tighten them up. Now this is holding the nut in place. I'll glue it in a little bit later. That's almost, okay, that was still a tiny fraction high, but it's still lower than I would play it, so I can just wind it up from there if I can find the thingy. I may have to eat my words and adjust this because the radius may not be entirely suitable, because the one thing about the PRS is it's probably, if I look at it, probably got a tighter radius than, I'm pretty certain it has, tighter radius than the nut. I think this is a 12-inch radius, so I'll just double check that. Sounding good already. Looking at this, do you know what? We are a tiny fraction higher on. It's so minuscule. I'm not going to adjust it. That's playable as it is, and that's a really low action. Again, the customer can adjust that, and you can. I'm going to leave it as it is. It's pretty good. So there's my setup, kind of done. And what I'm going to do next is get it ready and fret level it using my #1 file. I had a question this morning from a customer who I think was, or a friend of Really Loves Guitars, was following the the Thomas banana method, this method of fret leveling, and he had bought this thing here, the Stumac U-channel truss rod, which I've liked to use, but he was having a problem with the neck on his guitar, which he couldn't get to have much relief in it at all. So that was the first problem. The guitar itself had a problem. The truss rod, it was slacked right off, but there wasn't any greater curvature in it. So it had limited curvature, and then he tried to map the curve with his U-channel truss rod, and what he found was that the truss rod wouldn't go flat enough to match the very, very little amount of relief in the actual neck. And it contacted me and said, you know, have I chosen the wrong tool? Because in my ebook I'd said, you know, you can use this, get both this kind as well as the Stumac kind, and he'd gone with the Stumac one, and so he was kind of asking me, was that a mistake? And I said, no, it's a good rod. However, I've discovered that mine doesn't like to go flat completely, and I thought it was just the one I bought that was just maybe peculiar. You know, they're all a little bit quirky. They're not sort of high-tech devices. They are, you know, they're quirky things, mass-produced, but they all have peculiarities of little peccadillos. There's a low fret there. That's interesting. A low fret just before the high fret. That's always a good giveaway. Sometimes it's the low fret that creates the high fret. Anyway, so I reassured him that it's actually a good one to use for almost every other guitar, other than ones where the truss rod isn't working and you can't get them with enough relief in it. So I suggested that he got one like this, which is what I call the rod and bar type. Now that's fine. That's good. There is a low fret here. It's not two. Sorry, here. It's actually two down from the one we were choking out on the bends. But it's not a problem on the E string on the notes. And what you find is quite often you'll get a guitar where the notes all play, but it's when you do the bends that you catch the last or the finest, most precise effects of the uneven frets. And when I say uneven, we're talking relatively speaking here. The amount of unevenness is tinsy, tiny. You know, we're not talking great sort of things. Oh, look at that! You can see it. These are things you can't see, but they are at a low action. They are very definitely what are causing your string to choke out as you bend it across. Now, it's causing the E string to bend out as I choke it across. And if I bend the E string across now, it'll still choke out because it's this spot here where it chokes, right in the middle on probably the G or the D track, as I call it. Fine. So now I'm going to do the G track, which is where I hope to hear the improvement. Now, just to show how this method works, right? Remember, we push this note dead. I'm hoping that by the time I do the G and the D track, I'm hoping you'll hear that note free up, and that's the bit where you really can hear what this method does and why I like it, or you get an idea of why I like it. Now, sometimes it just may not do it. There may be the neck just will not have it, and sometimes I can't even explain why that is. It's not common, but sometimes you have to admit defeat in that you can't go any lower, or you need to make that bend, that huge bend play, you have to go a little bit fraction higher at the bridge than you just set it. Well, we don't know yet. Let's see when we get there. Now, this amount of fret leveling, I know from my experience, is very, very minimal. I'm barely kind of touching the frets, and it's 400 grit sandpaper, so the amount of material that's coming off is tiny. It's enough to take off the black pen, and it's taking off a fraction of tiny little bit of metal as well, but it is very, very minute amounts. little frizzle there, but I'm being ultra critical now. But let's just drop this in one more time. Now there is a whole point about this, is when you get some experience at it, you really does start to become a little bit intuitive, you know, in that, you know, I'll say something like I'm focusing on that end there, and what I mean really is I'm pressing just a fraction more at that end. And you might say, well, that's distorting the truss rod that you're using, and that's cheating, and it defeats the whole thing you just said about it being a perfect, well, I didn't say it on this video, but the thing you often say about it being a perfect curve and blah, blah, blah. And yes, you're right. But the thing is, when you get some experience with it, you know when to lean on it to cure certain problems. And I'm not claiming that you have to do it the same all the time. There is a kind of, there's a fluidity, or a kind of, whatever the word is, you know what I mean, randomness about it. In one sense, it's scientific in that when you calibrate this truss rod on 3 single separated points on the neck relief curve, what your truss rod tends to do is it tends to create a more of an idealized curve than the actual neck has. So you could if you were sort of able to map them, you would find that the truss rod curve is smoother and more idealized between those 3 points than this neck. This neck probably does a bit of wobbling and a few plateaus and a few wibbles and things that you can't see. But it does mean that your truss rod curve is a bit more ideal. And because of that, it does this weird thing that it sort of takes away, or gently ekes out, a bit more clearance in some of the congested, wibbly spots. Well, see, we're getting there. It's not perfect. I mean, it's a very low action. But let's do the G and the D one more time each, and then my instinct, touchy-feely, tells me, or my experience tells me to leave it at that point, because I don't think we'll get any better than that for that bend. But I'm sort of, as I say, I'm kind of focusing on this end a bit, and the G track and the D track next, and then I'll concede defeat if it won't bend that note all the way. And what I'll do is I'll make the tiniest of tweaks here, and you'll see that it allows us, opens up that note just enough to bend. And really that's what it's all about. It's about finding a point of compromise, bearing in mind that ultimately this is still a very low playing action now. It's quite a bit lower than it was. So we should be lucky if it plays. There we go. Hintiest, tiniest little bit, but you know what, I think that's enough. And with a bit of extra polishing on there as we go, I think we're in the right zone. I don't want to do any more leveling. That's very good to have eked that out. So you can see we've gone from not having a note there at all on that big bend. I'm not saying big, it's not that big a bend, but my fingers are soft. We've gone from no note at all to having a note, and that's what this method does really well. And even better, being able to hear the point at which it frees up. So I don't carry on leveling and filing with a big heavy file and just taking more metal away for the sake of it. I'm able to now move on to the next track and level there. And this one, this A and E had a fair bit of some unevenness and a little bit of fret slap, as I call it, meaning that it was struggling with space for the strings to spin. And I'm hoping that we'll clear both the, look at that, totally different. There you go, that's cleared the high spot and it's cleared the fret slap, which is a lack of room, but that's caused by kind of the undulations in the fretboard that the eye can't see. But that's changed how that sounds completely. So hey, and it's a fair bit lower than it was before when I first tested it. So I'm going to sort of apply the same kind of intensity of action to this final E track right to the edge, because that's often the case where you can get the edge of the fret just lifting slightly, and if you're going to get a high fret showing up or causing taking away the clearance, it's going to be right there. I'm seeing a high fret here. Actually, where is it? There. Actually there as well. So you probably clean that out as well. Really. Do a tiny bit more. Focus on the middle. Ah! I hate those. Oh, I hate those not fully cut off strings, Colin. I do. I really do. I really hate them because they always sting me. Okay. Instinct, intuition tells me that's it. Obviously it's flat now because I've been pulling the strings. Done, my ladies, my gentlemen. I am, that doesn't go there, that does, that goes here. Right, I am going to take these strings off now, and I'm going to then re-crown, oh, yeah, wait, Sam, wait a minute, Samuel, hold on, Sam, don't take the strings right off, you need them for a minute. Before I take the strings right off, I am going to stick down this here. I don't need that anyway, thankfully. I'm going to stick down the bridge, and that means having the strings, particularly the D and the G, to hand, ready to tighten up to hold the glued bit down will be good. So there you go. Oh, Colin, you've tied a knot in them, you bad boy. That's why I got stung, because you're one of those knot tiers. Well, would you not tie them? Right, this is going to be a one shot to rule them all, one go. So I'm going to put a bit of glue on the bottom here. And hands clean, put it in there, smooth with there, get that in there, get that in there, check the other end, I'm missing a string now there, but hey, right. Okay, that's that in place. Now, let's say, for example, when I put this back on now, I pushed it in a little bit harder than it was before, and it's now sitting a little bit lower, or a bit higher even, because I've put some glue in, whatever. It's not the end of the world, because it's still, if it's a little higher because of glue, it's still completely under the it's under the action we'd want to set it at, so it's going to adjust upwards to the correct action. It should, if there's no obstructions, that should go back to the same action, particularly when we put the strings on the neck curves, because there is that to factor in. So as far as I'm concerned, that's that done. I'm not going to keep these strings now because I bust one, and it's no point having a sacrificial set of 5. It's always the high E that you're short of anyway. So right now, I'm going to remove these whilst hoping that they aren't actually tied up. No, they aren't. I take it back, Colin. You're not one of those people, but there are some in this world, and I've run into them myself. Right, I do still have to dig this one out a little bit, which is a pain. Right, okay. So that's basically the playing action and the fret leveling. Playing action set nice and low, and the fret leveling done to match the action I've chosen. So I'm gonna tonight now, I don't know what the time is, it's 2023. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to re-crown these frets, and then I'm going to clean up the fingerboard and mask it off ready for polishing out. And what I've also got to do is have a look at the electrics, and what I'll do is I'll put the guitar on the bench, and probably tomorrow now, given the time, probably tomorrow I'll get the camera going down on the bench and I'll film the electrics bit. This is such a light bridge. It's aluminium, chrome covered aluminium, if there is such a thing. It's light as a feather. Anyway, yeah. So that's that. And like I said, this bit here at the end now will come out if it wants to. I won't pull it out for the sake of it, but if it wants to come out, it will. Which is why I suggest that you take off the outside strings first, work your way in, take the middle ones off last, and put the middle ones on first when you're stringing it, to make sure that that nut doesn't fling off to one side. Okay, so the recrowning bit is something I do when I've leveled the frets, because leveling the frets by definition puts a slightly flat spot onto the frets, and so this concave fret crowning file is diamond coated, and what it does is it sits over the slightly flattened fret, and as you go backwards and forwards like this, it just cuts off the flat spots at the edge, if you like, the shoulders of the fret, and it brings it back round to a nice fret or shape, or an arch shape. And the beauty of having the marker pen on it is that when I do it, I can see, as I cut inwards on the cut that sort of shoulders of the flattened fret inwards, it retains a little black line of marker pen down the middle of the fret, and as long as I don't keep going until that's been removed, then I know I haven't touched the top of the fret, so I can be confident that I've taken those sharp edged shoulders off the top sides of the fret, I should say, but I haven't lowered the height of the fret any, which is very good to know, because we just spent time leveling them, and it would be crazy if this process here messed up that leveling and kind of put it all over the place. So you can see it's not taking that long to do. I'm stopping and cleaning the file in between because it's getting a bit older. I've had it about 7 years. It's been very good, but I like to keep it clean so that it doesn't get clogged up with pen, because if it gets clogged up, it doesn't work as well. So if you ever use this method, this is the point at which you'll see how much you've leveled. You may think you've leveled a lot, but you'll only know it when you get to here. And if you have leveled a significant amount of metal off your frets, you'll know because it will take you quite some time to do each of these frets. You'll be working it quite hard to get it down, to get rid of the flat edges, because you made such big flat spots. But you can see just whizzing through these, there's hardly anything to do on each fret, just a little tiny bit, which again is an indicator of how little metal it took to level those frets. Now that's the funny part is that doesn't mean that I didn't level them, it just means quite literally the difference between having notes choking at that sort of low action and not choking is the difference between the choking and not choking is this tiny amount of fret level, which is quite amazing. Very, very small. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use some Coleman's fuel, which is naphtha, and I'm going to just use that now to wipe off a mixture of the dust, but also take off as much of the marker pen off the frets as possible, so that I don't have to worry about leaving it on. Sometimes I miss some, and that's just the way it is, but it comes off eventually. But yeah, this stuff is very inert and inoffensive to modern finishes. The only finish I wouldn't use it on is a kind of vintage finish, which I don't know what it is, and also, you know, it's so old a finish that it may well be flaking or ready to fall off anyway. And you know, I've had situations where I've used haven't used naphtha, but I've used you know, a very, very low tack piece of tape, for example, to cover the fingerboard, and it's touched the edge, and some of the finish comes off just because it's ready to come off, because it's ancient and it's not adhered very well to the wood, or to the you know, to the primer or whatever. So old finishes are always a risk, no matter what you use. But on modern finishes, this naphtha is a very safe and stable Coleman's fuel, easily available version of it here in the UK. It's about £8 to £10 a litre bottle, and actually it sounds expensive, but you know, you don't use that much of it, and it lasts fairly well. So I'm just, I'm just kind of doing a degreaser really. Any burnt on grease that you find from, you know, life and hanging up or whatever, or living in its case, you sometimes get sort of hard baked grease forming, or spots forming, which are kind of based around bits of grease, and it's good to take those off with some naphtha, and I'd still give it a clean up at the end as well, but it's just nice to take most of it off now. Some of it, you find some of those baked on marks are only, there's some on here actually, they're like water spots. They will come off pretty much only with some of this sort of stuff, which I'll do later on. I can see that now they are really baked on. They're just like the little specks, that like there were drops of water that dried and left a residue that you will not get off just with your hands, or just with a cloth like this. In fact, I'm not even sure, will it come off at all? Yes, it will. Something's been spat on it, or sorry, sneezed on it or something. Anyway, so what I've got now is I've got the nut on to the right height, cleaned everything up once. I've recrowned the frets. Now they need polishing out, which is something I tend to do off camera because it's long-winded, and I can put the radio on if I don't have the camera on. This is what's the scale? Is it 24 3/4, isn't it, or something? Never quite know the actual millimeters of it. It is 3. What is it meant to be? That's 3. This is gospel. That's coming in at 3, 10.5, 311, 622. That's 622. Let's see what that says in mils. 622. Calculator, anyone for a calculator? Tools, calculator, no, it's not that, I want the Google thing. Come on. 622 millimeters in inches. Okay, 24.488. So 24.5, isn't it? That's what I said. Close enough anyway. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to cover this all in masking tape, get it ready for polishing out, and I will also, while it's on masking tape, I'll have a look in the back and just double check that we're good for that thing, phase switch, and then I have to go and draw up the phase switch circuit because I've forgotten it. So I will see you a bit later. It might even be tomorrow actually. So good night. See you soon. Hello folks. We're over at the now warmed up wiring bench, and we've got the Bernie Marsden PRS SE, and I've given it a polish over with guitar polish stuff, and it just needs a little bit more clean rag polishing to get it shiny, but it's looking nice. Under the bright lights it's incredibly easy to see a fingerprint. Yeah, and it's anyway, so it's the frets have been leveled, recrowned, polished out, and all the good stuff. I've taken all the watermark spots off here with some guitar polish. Got a little drawing of the what's that thing called, the push switch, which is here on my magic arms. The thing we're going to have to do to begin with is to remove the the volume pot knob, which comes out nicely. I also need a set of bolt spanners. I guess I need a fine thingy. Not making much sense. A fine thingy. Actually, these aren't the right ones. Let me go back. Somewhere I've put my special spectacles and lost them. Oh yeah, my close-ups. Okay, yep, so I'm going to need to do this, just loosen it off very slightly. Somebody used some what's that stuff that stops things coming undone stuff. Wonder if they have. Feels a little bit nice and not tight exactly, but not likely to fall off instantly. Okay, so off to one side. Thank you. Right, we're going to need to cut this little wire retainer out so we can get into where we need to get. Lighting isn't brilliant, I'm afraid, and you don't really want my girt big head in the way. Okay, so what I've done is I've loosened the volume pot, the neck volume pot off so I can lift it out, and here it is. So the volume pot has what I expect to find on it. It's an A500K, and it has the pickup in, as you'd sort of expect, straight into the pot. The output from the pickup is going out to the switch. Hang on, wait a minute. Sorry, that's coming from. Is this working back to front? They're working the pot back to front on this. Let's just be sure of this. 1 second. Right. Normal. Depends which way round they're set to go. So basically something has to go up to the switch. A signal has to go up to the switch and be chosen between. And since it's got 2 volumes and a master tone, the pickups go to the volumes first and then out to the switch, and then you make the selection up there. And then a signal comes back from the switch, and in this case it would go to the jack. Let's just open this up. Okay, so we've got red and green coming up to the switch. Red and green coming up to the switch, which should tell us basically what the output is. So the output is the middle, that's okay. So the pickup is coming in as expected. All right, I didn't see that. That doubles back. I thought that went that way. Okay. Yeah. So as expected, the white one here is the neck pickup. That's going to where you expect, the hot lug grounded out on the top, and we can tell then that the white is considered the hot in this arrangement, and then this is the output to the switch, and it's going to ground the switch as well as taking the signal out, and then as expected, the right hand lug is grounded to the pot itself. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove those and that. And we can do, if we wish, we can, oh, I've got my special new arms, pardon me, my gripping realistic hands. Remember Action Man in the old days with his realistic gripping hands? Let's see, we've actually got a device that will bring this safely out of the way for once. Oh my goodness. How much do I love that? A proper helping set of hands, he said. A bit of work. Come on. Thank you. Okay, so we said white is the pickup signal, remember? So white is the pickup signal. Now, we'll just, what I'll do is just take that off to one side for convenience sake with some green stuff. This is very good keeping things out of trouble tape. This is the out to the switch. Just hold it there for a minute. Meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pot ready. Now I really did think that the clips on this baby would be a little bit tighter, bigger than this, and actually they've got these nice rubber things on which are at the moment making it a little bit difficult to grip. Right. Oh, that's better. Will that work? Yes. Okay, so we're going to make a couple of little jumpers, and according to my diagram, we're going to put one of them is going to ground to the pot, and this is back. Okay, that one grounds to the pot. Yep, and that one does as well. Okay, so it's an opposite way round from how I've seen it before, but that's fine. So we've got some really nice silicon wire here to do the jumps with. It's very small bit of wire involved. The problem is, such as there is a problem, the problem is we'll put in this little jump over with two different coloured wires for fun, but there's so little space that it's actually incredibly difficult to actually do it tidily. You have to have some excess wire sticking out because you quite simply can't get two bits of wire right through there. Caught my finger on the blades. They're magnetised to there. That's why it caught me. So there's a couple of ways you can go about this. You can either tin the wire first and see if you can get that through the tiny little lugs, which I'll try and do. But it may be that the core of the wire is possibly a tiny bit too big for our purposes. Get some fresh solder in. That's a good start. Get the solder hooked up in whatever you're doing. So the thing about this is tinning the wire definitely helps you to do things with it, but it thickens it up for a start, and quite naturally, obviously, it makes it stiffer, so it's harder to bend around things. And what I try to do is when I cut it back a little bit, I try to put a little bit of a sideways cut on it. So the fun now becomes, can we get this thing? Let me just think, could we get away with, actually we'd probably do better with a single bit of wire. Let me find some single core wire. See if we can make one of these out of bare wire. They don't both have to be covered, you see. And one of these think is going to need to go a bit further. So we could probably do better with a single piece of wire. Where is my, okay. The long thin pliers that I would normally use aren't here. I have to use an alternative. Okay, so we know that this this one that crosses over this way also has to ground out. So I'm going to try and fit it through here. Yep. And then we're going to try and run it through the bottom one. We're going to need plenty of bending room to get it through. Yep. Pull that way. Pull sort of that way. See, it's very difficult to actually get it in, but I think we might just get half of it done this way. Oh man, oh man. Sorry, very difficult to do this and keep it in line of a camera as well. Okay, almost there. So you can see that you might see, if I just bend everything and pull everything tight, I can probably get this to a place where, if I'm careful, it can form a crossover without getting in the way of the other thing. And of course, what you can also do is pull the other ones apart, so you give yourself a little bit more room, which is always not a bad place to start. There's no shame in doing that, particularly if you haven't got much access. Okay, so there's a connection I can work with, safely out of the way of everything else. So I can get this one hooked up. And then this one. So I don't know how you can see this. So that's surplus. We don't need the this one going off the top here. Snip that off tidily. And then this one wants to go back here and get grounded, and it can get grounded quite easily, happily, on the side of the pot here. The side of the switch, I should say, because that's grounded to the pot itself by connection to all the metal work. Oh, thank you, phone. Okay, so there's our, let's just get these pliers. I need the other pair really. Okay, just sit that down and get it properly soldered. There we are. And we pull that bit up and snip it off. Now there's a bit of spare material. It's actually, notice I'm not even using the helping hands right now. A bit of spare material, spare wire, that we've also need to ground this this one here, which is the, what do you call it? The right hand one, I call it, over onto the pot itself. That's another grounding job. Difficult to keep it still. That's the side connection made. So that's the number, or the right hand lug will be grounded. And now we just need to pull this out from here and connect it up, keeping it tidy. This might now be where this comes in handier. hold it for me, will you? Yeah, maybe. So I'm basically getting as much of these bits done before putting this back into there, because, or if I can get it all done before putting it back in would be good, because the less you want to be leaning into a tight little compartment like that, the better. Okay, so now I've got the other crossover, which I want to just make sure they're all nicely out of each other's way. In the other crossover, sorry, I've done that one, that's going to earth, yes. The other crossover has to continue onwards too, and that goes out through here. I couldn't do that without, that's an interesting one. So this is where it gets difficult. If I wanted to do this with wire, I'd have to, now I couldn't get a piece of wire through, so we have to basically try and get 2 bits of wire into these little tiny things. I thought I had soldered that, but it doesn't appear to be. Let's try it again. Yeah, we got to go through the lug, out the other side and down to the hot lug on the pot. Wow, that's very fierce. So I don't think we're really going to be able to get to do that. So the best I can hope for is to get this in and then fit another one on top, but it will probably end up just sitting on top of the lug, because there's very little way in the way of wiring that you can get 2 of through these absolutely minuscule little lugs. As you can see, I'm struggling now to get this one in. So there's the first one. Probably makes sense now if I solder that one in place. Now it's got a yellow sheath around it, which will insulate it from the little crossover that's bare and that's sitting underneath. As long as nothing kind of moves around inside there, it shouldn't ever be a problem. So first little yellow lug in place. Now the fun is we have to get this one with its slightly chamfered edge, I'm hoping, through there like that. There we are, there's the crossover. And if we can, we might try and get another one sharing that lug, but honestly, I don't know if it's possible, but hang on, let's just have a think. That is, right, that's got to be, that's the output, that's still going to be that. So we have to have a little, little jumper. Let's go yellow again. It's going to share. If we can make it share the little lug. Sharing the lug probably won't fit. It'll probably end up just sitting on the solder. We'll make it, give it a little blob of solder and make it just sit on the lug. It's a perfectly good connection. It just hasn't gone through the hole, but there are times when you simply will not get 2 of these things through a single hole. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is to get 2 pieces of hookup wire into one push-push switch. Nonetheless, I'm going to attempt to cut it obliquely in case there was a chance of cohabiting in this small space. God, and I'm looking at it now, there it is. Not even a hope, he said, optimistically. Would it go in the, come on, let's see if it'll go in the actual same way as the other one. Come on, maybe. Push it down there. That's, no, there's no chance it will fit in there. Look, 2 things going in, no. Right, that is not possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach this one and we're going to make the other one jump off it without going through the hole, because there ain't a chance in in heaven of it going through. Maybe pull it back a little tiny bit, give it a bit more bare metal. Okay. And we cut that back a bit. And then, actually what we need to do is load up this end a little bit with some solder. Sorry if it's a terrible view, I'll just edit this all out and we'll say, oh, I did it off camera. So we've got a bit of loaded with solder there on that end. And the idea is we will, where we're going to, oh yeah, we're going to lug number 1. Now we could come through the back here, like so, possibly, like maybe so. Let's see, when you've hardened it with solder, it just doesn't want to bend and go through any lugs. Right, so we have a lug position there. Right, good, let's get that soldered in. It's coming through the back to the front of the lug, which I quite like. Okay, so this doesn't have the volume link, no, sorry, the tone link, does it? No, because it's going out to the switch first. And the output from the switch does the meeting up with the tone bit. Okay, so there's our thingy there. Now what I'm going to do really is I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to make this connect up to that and make it work. And frankly, it'll be easy enough to do, providing this stays still. Stay still. Yeah, maybe. Right, let's help it on its way by bending it inwards. We don't want the other one to fall out. We do want this one to hook up to it. Okay. Ouch. Right, so that's attached. I'll just trim back this tiny bit of excess off the back. It's clear of everything, so there's no chance of it grounding out. Okay, so now we've got the first one coming down across and going to ground. It's not on the top of the pot, it's on the side, that's fine. The other crossover comes down from the top left to the bottom right and then jumps over to the hot signal, and the output from this goes to the switch, and the output is, they've kindly included loads of wire so we shouldn't have a problem. Sorry, what am I talking about? Yes, the output goes to the switch, so the output from here goes to the switch. So what we'll end up with is the middle one output going out like that, and then we'll have that earthed off on the side there. And then all we have to do after that is to fit the pickups signals into the side of the inputs on the switch. Now I'm just looking at this, seeing whether I probably might need to just clean this up a bit because it's a bit gunged up. So we can use that bit. The ground bit is good. I just want to revisit the hot part of the thing. Okay, so this is the output to the switch, remember. So what I'm going to do, if the special things will let me, grab hold of this at a bit of a reach. No, not so much. I'm going to put a little bit of solder on both of those, and then we'll hook those up to the pot. And then we'll do the other connection. Now this is going to go to the side, so I like to load the ground wire a little bit so it will make an easy connection. And we can put it on the side. Right, now what I don't know for a start is whether this needs any special extra washers or nuts, but we'll sort of see when we put it through. What we have got in there is the kind of crimp washery thing, which is magnetic and stuck to my pliers. I think we'll be all right, but I know that Colin was worried about this sticking out, but I don't think it's that much. It's not too much. It's not any longer actually. It's the same length. It's fractionally taller bit on top. So technically we might, if it works, we might want either one level of nut in there just to hold it a bit tighter underground. Let's just have a quick look before we do any other wiring up. Let's try it in there. Quick look. Oh, this is brass, so it's now not fitting. That's your other slight problem. It won't quite go through the hole. We do need to just widen it very slightly. Yeah, so better quality pot means a wider shaft, but it's easy enough. So I'm trying to see how much that will stick up when it goes through. I can't tell without widening the hole, but the hole has to be widened, which means we have to get this out. Thank you. Get the reaming thing. Where's it gone? It's one of the millions of magnetic tools over here. Now this is quite crunchy anyway, with all its what's that stuff? No, that's the end of it, right? With all its cleaning stuff and finish that's gone into the hole. Probably hardly, only just needs that grungy finish taking out. There you go. That's all it needed. Cleaning rather than enlarging. Okay, I'm just going to put this back in with the crush washer. Not crush washer. What is that name of that washer that comes with? It sits inside against the wood, if you can actually make it sit there. Not crush washer. It's a spiky thing. Okay, that won't work with the nut on it. That's okay. I'm a bit hopeful. If it's not right, we can put a washer or two in there just to be on the sort of safe side to check, but I have a feeling that it'll work as is. But let's not do anything just yet, because we have to still hook up our ins and outs. So the first thing, the problem is that turns, doesn't it? Yeah. Can we hold it there? Thank you. Right. So the first thing, what did we say? That's the output to the switch. And the output to the switch is where? It's in the center, the output lug of the volume. So the volume goes out to the switch. The switch comes back to the jack, and off that goes the tone. Something like that. Okay, so that's not bad. We'll just place that there. Get up, stand up. It's all a bit clumsy, especially when you've got a camera going. So that's the output. That's right. That's the output to the switch, which is straight out of the switch, and we turn it over, and we've just got to, I can stay where I want it, probably, and we're going to gently push this down and ground it to the top, to the side of this pot actually, if it will cooperate with these new extra special gripping helping hands. Feels about right. I'm not entirely sure about enough wire solder on that, so I'm just going to add a bit more for good measure and make sure it's really held on there. Got to transfer enough heat through. Problem with these things is they aren't built to press down on anything, so it can often be a case that you you're not 100% sure you've got a connection. It's connected, that's all right. In fact, I would rather press down on here like this to be absolutely sure of this connection. It just makes me nervous to not be able to push it right down like that. Oh, come on, pliers. Goodness sakes. Thank you. Right. So that's the grounding for, that's the output to the switch grounded, and now we have the business part of it, which is the ins to the micro switch, I suppose you'd call it, and they're going to sit down like that. So we have, what did we say, this one is evidently, black is evidently put in as the earth on this one, and the white is the hot. And what do they reckon it was on this side? I reckon it went like this. Let's see if we can do the same. Sort of, actually, hang on, let's just think, because this has to sort of somehow go, one has to go this way, possibly, and the other has to go the other way. And right now, that's not in any state to go through, and probably nor is the other one. Let's see if I can just trim that down to a point. So a little bit, what do you say, hot to the right hand side according to this diagram. That goes through, that's good. So this is a little bit tricky to reach. Something like that. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Just about. That's the hot signal into the micro switch. I can't breathe when I'm doing that. That should be that part of the game, and that's nicely covered up away from any harm. Nothing can touch anything. And now all I have to do is get this side into this little tab, which looks pretty comfily. It's gone in comfily over this side, and now it's come out again over this side. I don't think it's going to want to come in from underneath, that's the problem. So I'm going to have to come in from the behind departments. God almighty, this is fiddly. Which means I have to somehow extend this a little bit. So we need to lose this extra little bit of sheathing around here. Hello. Will you kindly come through here? No, it won't fit through. Oh, yes it will. Thank you so much. Right. And just get that to behave now. I think. Now, it'd be good to test this out of the guitar before anything else happens. And let's strip the sheet covering back a tiny bit. Let's just make sure that isn't close to anything else. Yeah, well, it's do you know what? There's no real reason for that to be like that. I think I would rather pull this all the way through if I can. Maybe wishful thinking. Yeah, think it is wishful thinking. That's connected up. My concern is there's a bit of bare wire here that stands a chance of getting in the way. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm going to cut this off here very carefully so I don't cut anything else. I'm going to pull out this little extra bit that's going to get in the way, and I'm going to work with this bit again. Bear with me. So what am I pulling out? I'm pulling out this spare bit here. Thank you. Fling. Might be worth just solder suckering out that, if I can, this little bit of the lug here. Difficult. Can't really get a grab on it. So what I would like to be able to do is get this shortened. It's got its bit of, actually what it's got on it is a bit of crappy what's that stuff? Insulation tape, really, which I don't like at all. I'm just trying to get that wire in there but free of any other things, so it can't possibly ground out. It's only my only concern, really. So that yeah, okay, that's naff. Okay, so this tape is not holding up to the job at all. It's just melting as we go anywhere near anything. So we now got this sort of bare wire, which can be really short. I don't mind about that. Let's try and work with it really short. Shorter the better in a way. I just don't want any extended wire in there at all. So let's cut an oblique, sharp as possible little bit, and then we will come over this side out of trouble. And we'll fit you. Oh, of course it's not. There's no room. Oh, sorry, there's solder in there. Okay, there's a connection for a minute. Let's just turn this around. Right, we're safely out of the way of anything else, I would say. Just see if that is a workable joint. It's this horrible electrical tape that's bothering me. It's left wire too close to the jumper wire underneath for my liking. I'm just pushing that way out of the way. I'll bend this a bit further outwards. It should keep them well apart. I think so. Okay, stay where you are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in a jack plug at this point. Switch glasses. Plug in a jack. Plug in a jack. There's the guitar jack. See, these things are never quick. Because they are fiddly. Wow, that's got effects on it which we don't want. Right, middle range, tone, gain, volume. Okay, now let me get their tuning fork, because this should be able to give us the idea of how the phase switch is working or not. We don't have a lot of easy access. let's get that little washer out again. There you go. Okay, so I'll turn this up. Turn it up, I think. Now this is not grounded yet. This one isn't grounded to the others, so it's probably going to be making a slight buzzy noise. Now, what I can't tell without strings on is which way round. Is that the... That feels louder on the in, split on the out. I think that's probably going to have to guess that as being the right way round, right way round. And if it isn't, I'll have to come back and redo it. But let's take it that that's the way it should be. Okay, so yeah, at the moment that wasn't grounded. It's just loose. It's separated. It should ground out on the this stuff on the surface, conductive paint, but I'm not 100% convinced it will. Let's get this. We need a washer that fits, which won't be this because that's for the, oh, it might be. Yeah, just okay. We need to tighten it up. Now, if it doesn't ground out, if I'm not happy that it's grounded out, I will manually ground it. That's quite nice. Let's just look in there. I'm going to leave that as is. I'm not going to bother putting another cable tie back in because it just doesn't really add anything. The wires aren't going to go anywhere. Okay, that's nice under some pressure. So the best way really to test this out would be to put a single string on it. Let's see if I've got one. I'll probably have to stop the video anyway to just move the camera and stuff ready for the restringing and that business. Funnily enough, I don't appear to have anything smaller than a D. Can you believe it? Oh, G, third. I've got G. Let's put a G. I think well, a rusty G. Let's put that on. All right, let me stop this and I'll come back when we're on the bench. You just go video, go video, go video. Right. After all that, I put on this here G string that I'm wearing to test out the coil switch, phase switch, and it works fine in the middle. The diagram was back to front, so I ought to remember that and put it writ it down somewhere so I remember for another time instead of having to look it up each time, which is a mighty big pain in the thingies. Right, so on this here neck of ours, I'm going to lightly just going to gently dab some oil a priori to putting the strings on. So it's all done. We should be getting ready to ship out shortly. I've got a guitar to pack when I get home, and that is Nelson's Les Paul Epiphone, and then this one probably the day after. I would prefer to keep it at home and double check it after a day at home. In its case, it's a little bit colder here than anywhere else in the world, so I don't wish to sort of drag it back and turf it out first thing tomorrow. I prefer it sit in the case and double check it and make sure nothing's changed. The thing I've learned over time is that remember let us put on the middle two first, shall we? Yes, let's. Why? To keep that old adjustable nut from bouncing around. Thank you, heater. Yeah, I've lost my track now. What was I saying? Oh well. Yeah, something about the temperature changes and whatnot. So it's worth sitting at home in housey type temperatures for a 12-hour at least period. I feel more comfortable. Yes, that's what I was going to say. The downside of doing really low setups and being, you know, attractive setups to customers from a low point of view is that, of course, there's a risk that a small environmental change changes, you know, takes away the clearance that we previously had. There's a little blemish on here that I want to put a tiny dab of that paint, no, body scratch remover. I used to use stuff called Intonation. This is a version of that. That's pretty much the same, but it's very good. As was Intonation. I think Intonation was shipped in from overseas, so it was a pretty expensive product. I'm just going to get rid of that little baked on blemish, I suppose you'd call it. Looks like a bit of water. It's amazing how that happens. You get a bit of water that kind of droplet lands and then it solidifies and attracts goo, and then it becomes a sort of, yeah, literally a baked on thing. Yeah, it's got rid of it, as I imagined it would. So a little bit of wiggling to get clean around the tune of what's it. Okay, yeah, so yeah, there's a sort of risk when you do low setups is that they can end up being very susceptible to environmental changes, and sometimes and I've learned the hard way, if you set everything at its absolute kind of skin of the teeth low setting, all it takes is somebody's central heating to be kind of a different setting, and suddenly you've got an unhappy customer. You know, and although I would increasingly ever more these days implore customers to get used to operating their truss rods and learning how to do it, you know, and saying that it's something you just absolutely must know how to do. You know, don't expect that this setup that you've got here will even stay, you know, the same as spring comes round, for example, because it won't. Well, the chances are it won't. You know, so whilst it may be a very sensible admonishment to say to somebody, you know, get comfortable making those adjustments, and being able to say, well, if you were comfortable making those adjustments, then you could, you know, dial out the little bit of movement that's happened since your guitar got back in your house or whatever. It doesn't matter how right you might be on that plea for somebody to become familiar with doing it. It's no good to you or them if they feel like their guitars come back and straight out of the box there's something not right, and you don't win by saying, well, you should learn to adjust your truss rod because this is going to happen all the time, living as we do in the UK or whatever. But so I've learned, I guess what I'm saying is I've learned to stay a bit back from the extreme sport of low fret leveling or low action setting. It's a little bit too risky, and it does nobody any favours, so I kind of taken it a bit easier and set it a little bit above the absolute bare minimum, which is a smart thing to do. But the exhortation still remains that you know, really do encourage you, if you never have, and I'm not saying to anybody in particular that you haven't, but whoever may not have adjusted their truss rod, I absolutely encourage you to do it, because you need to know what it does and you need to be confident to make an adjustment when the weather changes. Or, yeah, weather or humidity or something like that. And then, you know, if you know how to do that, you won't be forced to take it to your local tech. when something changes, just because it's, you know, environmental, weather's different or whatever, the seasons change. So I implore you, get familiar, men, with your truss rods. Sounds like one of those adverts for checking your bits and pieces. And I know men are not very good at doing it, you guitar men and women. I don't know actually, do women check truss rods more, or adjust truss rods more bravely than men? Wouldn't surprise me. I think men are very good at, can be very good, judging by the results, can be very good at inventing sort of legends and myths about things to frighten themselves off doing any adjustments to anything. It'll break, it'll result in a banana shaped neck, and you'll never be able to X, Y and Z sell it again. I love this bridge. Did I tell you that at the beginning? You know why? Well, the first reason why is it's not a tune-o-matic. That's one very good reason. The other reason is because it's very light and it's elegant. I think it's elegant in its simplicity. It does everything a bridge should do without all the fussy, hysterical stuff that the tune-o-matic bridge tries to do badly. So that's my love for simplicity there coming through. Okay, so here we are, restrung a set of D'Addario 10s. And we're ready to gently give the strings a little bit of a stretch to bed them in first off. Without snapping them. Now I'm going to use my tuning fork, which I always like to do because it's always there. It's always there, and you know, go for the wrong octave. Now, things that kind of moved since doing everything we've done to it. The first one is the bridge can be lower because those posts can move, and also the nut can be down a little bit. So the thing I'm definitely going to do is check the action and make an adjustment if I need a last fret action adjustment. This is coming in at 1.3 to 4. This is coming in at just on 1. Polished these out with 400, 600, 1000, 1500 grit paper, followed by 1500, 1800, 2400, 3200, 3600, 4000, 6000, 8000, 12,000 grit micro mesh, and finished off with some Autosol chrome polish with a Dremel wheel. And cleaned all that off with that stuff. Coleman's cooking fuel, you know the stuff. Right, remember back at the beginning, Colin, I said that the tuning stability on your guitar was, well, it was bad because the two main culprits. The first one was the nut, which was gripping and pulling the strings or creating friction on the strings. And the second one was the unreleased slack in your strings. And those two things are 50% each of why your guitar wasn't staying in tune, and wouldn't have stayed in tune for years to come if you'd have carried on playing it like that. I can't tell you how amazing, how surprised I've been in the past about how much slack is retained in the string train, you know, from beginning to end. And people have brought me guitars that they've had and played for years on end, and they would have been convinced that the slack was all out of the strings, have brought them to me, and I can just pull them out of tune instantly. And people sometimes think it's the tuners. Kind of want to believe that it's the tuners going backwards or something. But it's not. That is sweet. I'm not joking, actually, that is sweet. There's a sweetness about that. Played one of these before, set one up before. After the setup, my God, it was lovely. Before it was lovely, and I liked it a lot. And if one of these came round and my name written on it, and a wad of cash fell out the sky at the exact same moment and said, buy it, I would, because it's nice. Not that I need any more guitars. I've got so many guitars I can afford to have them sitting here for when I want to play up here. Unless I sell that one to JT, who I've already got drooling over it. It's exactly right up his street, that what I call the donor caster. And I didn't intend to sell it because I made it for fun, and I made it because I wanted to hate it, because it was the cheapest Chinese body I could buy without them paying me to take it away. And it turned out absolutely brilliantly. Not quite as in tune, but so that's what 3 stretchy things I've done, and it's still going out of tune. So we still have to do stretching. Okay, this slack stuff, it takes the tiniest amount of slack in your string to get caught or hung up on a sticky nut. That's first thing. The nut is the biggest, probably the biggest culprit. But if you've got slack in your strings, it will come out for years. If you put the time in now, hands up when you were younger, who didn't put their teeth on the end of their guitar and strum it? I know you had to have a long neck for that sort of thing, but we're very close. When you've done that, even though this is lower than my target action, what the hell? The point here, Colin, is if it's too low for you, the point is I've leveled it to this ultra low level. If it's too low, of course, go up, because I'm telling you now, it is slightly below my normal target for such a guitar. We are done, ladies and gentlemen. It is done. We have to just check the intonation now. That's going to be interesting with this bridge. We shall now see what like it is, and we probably should have a tone test. What time have we got? 2020. 2020. It's not. Yes, it's 2020. That was a horrible year, but it's not a bad time on the clock. We not got any. Yes. Wait a minute. Culprit. always the way, isn't it? The StewMac tool. Now there's a couple of tools that well, actually every tool that I bought from StewMac I'm very glad to have bought, and this is one of them. When you get a guitar that has a loose jack socket, then you put this in here and you turn it that way, and then you take your little adjustable spanner or whatever you've got that fits, and you hold this thing here and you turn that thing there, and together they make, together they make a tight jack socket. There you go. Sometimes I've been putting what's that stuff? Low grade light. There's a colour to it. I forgot what it is, but the not very sticky stuff. Thread lock. Low strength thread lock is actually can be a good thing to do. I've found out the hard way that maximum strength thread lock is not so good for jack sockets and pots. Now I need a strap to do this because it's really probably better off in the playing position. I'm going to put this here, right, because I got absolutely nowhere near pointing at me the other day. Not that I really wanted to, but I have to concede that I am going to do a mirror thing. I'm going to put a mirror behind it. In fact, where Morris's picture is, I'm going to balance a mirror on there, I think, so that I can point it at me when the time is right for me. I have a twang. Oh yes. Whew, this is lightningly flat, low and crazy. Let's hear what the tones of this little devil are like. Come out, rolling amplifier. Come out to see us. Come out to see us. Don't trust your own strap, Sam. Don't trust it. Gosh, I mean, is that left on the last setting? Holy cow. Oh, the angels are singing. There's the phase. Of course, the phase switch only works in the middle position, naturellement. Do it like this all the time. Middle position, full sound. Love it. Get the right one. Oh, I do like it. The only thing about the switch is you get a click. If you're in the neck position only, you have a noise, an audible. You get it doesn't change the tone. It just there must be an off position in between momentarily. That sounds like that bloody TV show, news of the news. Read all about it. Yeah. So in is full, out by exception is choked, scooped. Chords after that. Something like that. Going through the floor. Not a fan of delays much. Beautiful, lovely. I'm sold on this guitar, I have to say. Bernie Marsden PRS for me. Wow. Love it. Colin, thank you for sending it down. It's been my pleasure. Remember, this is very low, okay? I'm not kidding. I was tempted to raise it, but you know what? It's all in order. You've got the ability to raise it at either end with your adjustable Tusq nut, should you wish to, and I shall stick that somewhere on the back with a little bit of green tape. And you have the ability to adjust this up by 1/8 of a turn if you want to raise it a fraction higher. But you know something, it's beautiful the way it is. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to leave it at that action for you to enjoy, knowing that you can make that adjustment if you absolutely need to. But God, it's gorgeous. I love it, truly do. Yeah, two out of two that I've seen of these that I have rather liked. So, and that's unusual for me, it really is. I'm not a big brand fan particularly, and I'm not particularly swayed. No, I'm not swayed either. I'm not swayed by pretty things for the sake of it. But this, if I had to have, if I wanted to go out and gig with a Les Paul type thing, I would happily take this. It's very, very nice. Blemish on the side. That's an older scratch on the side from somewhere, but it's all beautiful. I would happily have one of these. There we go. Great. Well, thanks for watching. This nut is coming back with you anyway, just so you can see its construction. The adjuster for here, obviously a big flat blade screwdriver if you would ever want to change the bridge, one of those big jobbies. But again, beautiful bridge, absolutely beautiful, lightweight, perfectly intonated. What's not to like over and above a Tune-o-matic? So there we go, last quick look. PRS SE Bernie Marsden, gorgeous actually, really, really gorgeous. And now complete with push pot. Okay, thanks for watching. See you soon. Grapples with recorder.